Welcome to 10-Minute KQL. These short 10-minute sessions will teach you KQL, allow you to get hands-on practice in a lab environment, and provide some homework to practice after the session. This is the second video in the KQL Intermediate Series. In the last session, we discussed data types and talked about the difference between is_null and is_empty. In today's session, we'll learn to summarize, count, min, max, and make set. If you find value in these videos, please support the channel by hitting the like button, and if you want to receive notifications of new videos, hit the subscribe button with the notification bell. In the beginner series, we will learn to use distinct to identify unique values in a given field. As we pull up the sign-in logs table and project down to some of the useful fields, we can see login information of interest. If we were interested in finding the unique locations from the location field, we could simply use distinct location to see all the country codes. If we go back to the original fields of interest, what if we want a summary of different distinct values of multiple fields, and we want to enrich that data? In this case, a better option would be to use summarize. We can summarize the count, we can identify the min or max values, and we can use summarizations to project data onto charts and graphs. To better understand the initial concept, let's just start out by focusing on the count of unique combinations. When we pipe in summarize, let's use the count function as an enrichment tool to provide us additional information above what the distinct operator would provide. When we place the name of a command followed by parentheses, this identifies a function, which is simply predefined code that will accomplish a task for us. In the case of the count function, it will perform an addition problem on whatever we tell it to, in the same way the count operator would for the beginner series. When we use summarize, we need to identify at least one field to summarize by. Let's start out by summarizing only the location field. You can see that it provides the exact same output as distinct, but in addition, it also gave a count of each instance of records containing each location. Right away, we can see this can be very useful, and in some cases it's better than using distinct alone. Let's go back to our original project values and add an additional layer to summarize. Instead of only summarizing the count by location field, let's add an additional field of user type and see what happens. We can now see that many, but not all countries are divided into two records. The first provides a count by guests in that country, and the second provides a count of members in that country. These are counts of the distinct combinations of the two fields we've identified. Since there are only two types of users, either a guest or a member, the maximum number of records for each distinct country code would be 2. We can also see that some countries only have one record. In that case, they only had guest accounts and no member sign-ins from that country. Let's go back now to our original query for a moment. If we look at the app display name field, we can see there are more than 2 possible distinct values. What will happen when we summarize the count by location and app display name? We can now see that for the US country code, there are many different records, one for each unique app display name count. As you can see, this can be a useful way to answer bigger picture questions about categorization and numbers. And later we'll learn how to take this information and present it in charts and graphs. When we added the count function, we see that it adds a new field with the results. We can also have more than one function added to help us out. Let's add a make set function. When we add a field name into the parentheses, this will make a set of each unique app display name, so we'll only have one record for each country. When we do this, we delete the app display name from the by section of the line to avoid duplicate information. You can see now that each unique location value has a count, and each unique app display name is placed on one row as a set. This is one way to make the information more presentable, depending on what types of questions we're trying to answer. What we've learned so far is that every additional field placed after the by portion of the line means the resulting count will be provided on a unique combination of either the one field or many fields. There are many more functions we can use with summarize than count and make set. In this example, we'll add the minimum timestamp and the maximum timestamp for each unique location and app display name. What we see here are the date and time ranges that people from each location were signing into each application. During an investigation, you could filter for an individual by name to see what their activity was and look for malicious actions. You could use summarizations to look for patterns of usage or activity of a resource. Summarize is great for answering high-level, big-picture questions, but can also provide a good snapshot during detailed investigations to let you know if you need to dig further. Keep in mind that Summarize doesn't provide raw data, it's just a roll-up of the information. In the last session, we talked about data types. Summarize works well with most, but not all data types. If we look at our sign-in log schema, we see that the device detail field is a dynamic data type. When we try to summarize by this field, we get an error saying that it's dynamic. When we look at this field, we can see that it's a dynamic JSON with key value pairs. We have a couple of options here. We can choose to parse the data by taking each key value pair and making it into its own field, or we can choose to leave it alone and simply cast the data to a string data type. When we cast to string, then rerun the query, the summarization works, finding the count of unique full JSON objects. While it's best to parse the JSON fields to get the information you need, then cast to a string, it may not be needed in every case. We'll dive deeper into parsing JSONs in the Advanced series. While there are many different functions available to use with Summarize, we've only shown just a few here, and we'll show more options in future sessions. For homework this week, we'll be using the free Log Analytics Workspace demo environment. If you need directions on how to access this environment, refer to Session 7 of the Beginner Series. In the LA demo environment, an AVS syslog table, write a query from the last 30 days that summarizes the count of the different severity types for each application name. Sort your results first by app name, then by severity. Also, remove empty app name values in your results. In the next session, we'll work more with Summarize. We'll also learn how to bin values in buckets. Then we'll start to work with charts and graphs. If you find value in these videos, please support the channel by hitting the like button. And if you want to receive notifications of new videos, hit the subscribe button with the notification bell.